Cimoooooooo! What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So today I'm bringing to you my Banlist predictions for the September 2020 format. Now, I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, and that's the fact that I would say there's a 90% chance we're not getting any Banlist whatsoever. We're still going to get one, but it's going to be more like the last Banlist where they just released a few cards from the limited list to unlimited. Did that do anything? Well, it made Altergeist a little bit more playable, I suppose, but that's about it. We're not going to be getting any earth-shattering ban lists, and that's because we haven't had any competitive events. And since Konami doesn't acknowledge the online environment whatsoever, they're not particularly incentivized to make any big changes to the list until we start getting premier tournaments back up and running again. That's probably not going to happen for several more months, but at least we can still talk about what cards are problematic and what changes we should probably see moving forward if we want a more healthy and sustainable game. So kicking things off with the banned cards, I've got everyone's favorite Lego character being Block Dragon. This is a card that I think almost universally everyone agrees should probably get banned. Even Adamantipator players want this card banned. Yeah, sure, it's a huge hit to their deck, but it just makes the strategy so inherently unfair, more so than it already is. This is one of the most powerful combo decks we've ever seen, and Block Dragon being able to generate so much advantage both during your turn and your opponent's turn, because you can like Masquerena it off and just go +3 for no reason whatsoever. This card just has to go. Like, this card is not healthy in the slightest and really just should not have been around for this long at all. Now, for my next pick, I actually have a split here, because if either one of these cards get banned, I'll be happy with it, but I feel like at least one of them has to get banned. And so that split is between Crystron Halqifibrax and Linkross. Now, Linkross is actually banned in the OCG for people who don't already know. That's because the OCG has realized that this is a very unhealthy card, and Crystron Halqifibrax is probably more unhealthy, but again, Linkross and Crystron Halqifibrax, it's kind of like going back to the Summon Sorceress days when that and Halqifibrax couldn't exist in the OCG at the same time, and why Summon Sorceress ultimately met her fate, but this is just taking this to an entirely another level. Crystron Halqifibrax is just such a degenerate and able for so many combos, and Linkross is like the perfect extender to pair with it to make those combos even more absurd, more degenerate, and make it less fun for your opponent to play. Both of these cards are absurdly powerful, and like I said, I think as long as one of them gets hit, the other one is okay to stay at 3. I think putting it to 1 just would probably be a little bit safer, but nonetheless, I think as long as we get some sort of hit here, I think that would be a positive step moving forward. Now, for my next pick, I actually have a very interesting choice, and I don't think anyone is going to make this call, but I'm going to throw in Borreload Savage Dragon to get banned. Now, hear me out for a moment. Borreload Savage Dragon is kind of like the ultimate end board for a lot of these Crystron Halqifibrax Linkross combos. So, since that's the case, if you remove Borreload Savage Dragon from the equation, it kind of just removes an Omni Negate from some of these end boards and makes the end boards a little bit weaker. Now, obviously, there's replacements. I mean, they could just easily go into stuff like Omega or other just powerful Synchro 8s, but I think Borreload Savage Dragon is arguably like the strongest pick here, and by removing it, it forces players to kind of pick a different option that may not be as degenerate. I don't know. I think it's an interesting card to think about. Now, the thing that's kind of going against this heavily is the fact that it is getting reprinted in the Megatins, and while the Megatins are already going to sell themselves because Dragoon is in there, the thing is Borreload Savage Dragon's also getting reprinted, so people might just want to get the tins for that card in and of itself. So that could be another selling point and a reason why Konami wouldn't want to hit this card. But considering the fact that Borreload Savage Dragon is like the 3rd highest card in terms of like win percentage for if it hits the field, I think there's a pretty justifiable argument for banning the card. Some people would disagree, but I don't think the card is particularly healthy for those reasons. And so, yeah, why not? We'll throw Savage Dragon on there too. If anything, if they don't hit Halqifibrax or Linkross, hitting Savage Dragon like maybe might be the next best thing. Now, to wrap up my ban cards, I got 2 cards in particular that I really hope Konami bans, but there's like a 99% chance they won't. And these cards just really are so degenerate because they don't allow the opponent opponent to even play the game. The first of which is True King of all Calamities. I mean, this card's been around forever. We've seen it time and time again, and while it may not see the most play at this particular moment, that doesn't mean it's still not a card that shouldn't be addressed, especially because of future card design and how easily it could be exploited, because if any deck is going to be rank 9 spam the deck, then this card is going to be an auto include. The second card is Utopic Zexal. Now, the reason why they won't hit this is because it's too new. Battles of Armageddon only came out about a month ago now, and people still want to have the opportunity to play with it. And if we're going to go based off the logic of if players haven't had the chance to play with their cards because of everything with coronavirus, then they're not going to touch the card. I don't think it's like the biggest issue right now because players are at least side decking appropriately, even main decking in some instances to kind of counteract it. But just because a card can be sided against or played against doesn't mean that a card should exist. Utopic Zexal just denies the opponent to play the game, and what fun is that? And especially with how easily you can get it onto the board, I just don't think the card should exist. But that brings us to the limited cards. Now, I've actually only got a single limited card on this list, and that's because I don't really think there's much else that really needs to be touched in the limited section at the moment. I think there's some cards that could like come off the ban list, but I think that's for a different discussion. And so the one card I want to discuss is Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine. Now, this is a card I've talked about before. Eldritch is one of the most played decks at the moment. There's so many different variants, and while Eldritch is incredibly powerful, I don't necessarily think that hitting the deck directly is going to be the best move. And what I mean by that is I think the deck should still be playable. And by hitting a card like Sanguine, I still think the deck would be playable at the top tiers of play because a lot of the other Eldritch hybrid variants have some other archetype that's doing some of the heavy lifting, and the Eldritch cards are kind of executing the more mid-range, long-term game plan if you can get to that point. And so, yes, it would be a hit to Eldritch, but it wouldn't make the deck unplayable. It would kind of just be not having to worry about as many copies of Sanguine going around. You still got everything else in multiple copies. People could just start playing stuff like White Elixir just to kind of counterbalance that. Obviously, Scarlet is way better, but it still could be a swap out there. I don't know. I think just like a slight check on Eldritch, especially if we're going to be hitting something as big as Block Dragon for Adamancipator, again, kind of just brings everything a little bit closer together. Now, just like the ban cards, there are some cards that I would hope Konami would limit to kind of future-proof the format a little bit, although that's not going to happen because Konami wants to get their money first. Now, one of those cards is obviously Red Eye's Dark Dragoon. This card will be released in the Mega Tins, and then we should be getting the ban list not too long after that. I would say maybe like a week or two tops at most. And the thing is, the OCG has already limited this card because they know how powerful and how format warping it truly is. But Konami's going to want the TCG to experience Dragoon at full power. And the thing is, again, since there's no events, there's no incentive for them to hit a card like this until they actually have to. You could also make the argument to hit some of the other pieces around Dragoon, like cards such as Predaplant Verte Anaconda, which is what gets you to your Dragoon in the first place, or even Red Eye's Fusion. In the OCG, they were like maxing out on Red Eye's Fusion to ensure they had copies of it in their deck. And even if you hard draw it, it's not bad. It's still a way for you to get to Dragoon, albeit it is much, much worse if you do happen to go that route. But just hitting like some piece of this combo, I feel like would just be good for the long term, but obviously I don't think that's ever going to happen. We are going to completely ignore the semi-limited list because I have spoken time and time again about how I feel the semi-limited list basically shouldn't exist. There's like 3 cards on it right now, and they could move those in different slots and abolish it entirely. So we're going to go straight to the Unlimit. So for the Unlimit, I say just move Tour Guide and Widow Anchor to 3 because A, putting them at 2 hasn't really done much for either of those decks. Sky Striker is actually pretty playable at the moment, so giving them an extra Widow Anchor is a nice touch for them. And since we're going to be getting Phantom Rage not long from now, giving 3 Tour Guide to a deck like PK Fire might be a good incentive for people to want to play the deck. And if they do that, they can just put Malicious to 1, and then we never have to worry about the semi-limited list ever again. And then the last card I wanted to discuss is ABC Dragonbuster. I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record with this, but we don't have any in-person competitive events which have any merit, and all we have is the online environment. And since on the last ban list, they just gave us 3 cards from limited to unlimited, make ABC Dragonbuster one of them. If it's broken, you can just move it back on the last ban list because it doesn't matter anyway. And if it's not, then people can play ABC if they actually want to because it's a strategy that a lot of people really enjoy. I believe the outcome with the highest likelihood of occurring is Konami's just going to take a look at the limited list, list, maybe even the ban list, but I think that's a little bit too dangerous for them. So they're going to stick to the limited list, look at a few more cards that could come off similar to last time, cards that are going to have minimal, if any, impact on the format, give people some variety, I suppose, and that's going to be it, because again, they're not incentivized to give us any other changes to this list because there's no events that are going to be happening anytime soon. We're probably not going to have in-person events until 2021, and while that is so depressing to say, it's the reality of the situation. So instead of fine-tuning and making some adjustments to the game to actually make it better for the players who are still playing during this time, which by the way is very difficult to do considering we don't have an official online simulator to do so, Konami's just going to kind of punt it once again. They're just going to kind of push things off for another few months till we get another ban list. Hope and pray that in-person events come back, and then once that happens, I think then we're going to get a very big ban list that's going to make a ton of changes. But in the meantime, there's no reason for them to, and so I wouldn't get your expectations up. I certainly am not going to have mine, but we'll just have to see what happens. So guys, that's going to do it for my ban list predictions. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on what changes you feel should be made moving into this upcoming format. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video informative, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member. Just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.